This is WOMM-LP operating out Burlington, Vermont, 105.9 The Radiator. Good evening, it's The Rocket Shop. I'm your host, Tom Proctor, and with me tonight is Nick Charyk and Chris Bilou of the Western Terrestrials. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you two this evening?
We're doing great. Happy to be here.
We've got a rare mild day. I hope you enjoyed it before all the snow and the cold comes back in.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of looking forward to, I'd love some snow during Christmas. We missed it last year, and it'd be nice, and get some ski time in around Christmas time would be nice.
Yeah, that's a literal plot of Why Christmas, isn't it? In Vermont and everything. Well, we do like starting with a song, so what have you got for us?
This is a song I wrote a while back called Ashes to Ashes, and it's about growing up in Vermont and the complexities around that. So I wrote it when I was 26, I guess. And I'm not 26 anymore. You ready?
Yep.
26 years in a dead-end town. Every time I left, she turned me around. She picked me up and then she beat me down. When I got lost, I wound up found. Well, I had dreams, I had such ideals. I started scheming schemes and cutting deals. I bought a little, just enough to sell, and I break even, then I've done pretty well. But there's a boom, for there's a buzz. I was a copper penny before I turned to rust. Riding high, then I walked up. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Well, there's gone for good and there's here to stay. And there's those in-between little shades of gray. Some folks come home for the holiday, but there's some of us that never went away. And there's a boom, or there's a buzz. I was a copper penny before I turned to rust. Riding high, and I walked up. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Thought we'd outrun all our reservations when we filled up down at that corner station. We took a right and then we took a left. Through the cooling twilight we drove on toward the death. And there's a boom, for there's a buzz. I was a copper penny before I turned to rust. Riding high, then I walked up. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust.
right, Western Terrestrials
Thank you.
with Ashes to Ashes. I want to ask you two. So you two are both Vermont natives. Is that right? Am I right in assuming that one?
I grew up in the Thetford, Vermont area, and then Chris is a more recent Thetford native in the Vermont area as well. And then there's sort of a larger cosmic outer space connection as well.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to know a little bit about Vermont and country music and its relationship. We certainly had a lot of people in here, primarily folk people, but folk country as well. They've told us that country and folk have got a real hold in Vermont, and as it's the sort of genre that you'd usually associate with something south of the Mason-Dixie line, why do you think that Vermont has that kind of relationship?
Yeah, it's almost a chip on my shoulder that I have playing this music around, because for me it's like a very natural thing. I grew up in the country, and I grew up around a lot of country music and bluegrass and old-time music and other things, but it's just always sort of been a piece of my culture and my experience growing up here. And I did like 4-H and things like that, listened to 90s country on the school bus, and don't know if I liked it at the time. I like it more in hindsight. And then my dad was a musician and exposed me to a lot of old country stuff like Hank Williams and Bob Wills and things like that. So it's just always been a part of my DNA growing up around here. And I got into punk music when I first started playing in bands when I was like 14, 15, and would come up here to 242. And it's really cool being here, seeing the tiny museum. There's like posters from shows I played. But that got me into rockabilly and a bunch of other things, but there was this thread of traditional, call it country music, that I've always been into. And then I started playing more of that kind of music in my 20s and would get that question, like, why are you from Vermont playing this? Shouldn't you be into Fish? Fish is fine if that's your thing, but this has always been my thing. And when we put this group together about 2.5 years ago, the first thing we did, we went to Nashville to record an album, because I didn't know what the band name was, what the full concept was, but it's like, we're going to play country music, we got to go do it. Go to the source. And having conversations in town there, I got this recurring, outsider thing, like we're these Vermonters and having to have that conversation. And that's what got us thinking about who the ultimate, outsiders were in country music. And we went all the way to the extreme with aliens. But we're the aliens. We brought our thing to Nashville, and people liked it. So that's what we're doing. And sort of we have this deep love of the traditional country music, and we also do it our own.
Yeah.
Quirky, weird Vermont, us way.
And I really love that that's kind of the history of why you guys are called the Western Terrestrials. It kind of does answer a couple of questions on that front. We do also have this big history of bluegrass, like you were saying, and folk, and I really do feel like country has got a real kind of toehold in here, and I can imagine being down in Nashville, it does probably feel like you are the outsiders coming in. But is there anything particularly about Vermont that you think really appeals to the kind of country songs, folk songs? What is it? Is it the landscape, the people, or is it just coincidence? And I just happened to have talked to
it's certainly not coincidence for me. And I grew up in, not in Burlington.
Yeah.
So it's a whole other multiple part of the States. But it was very much the pace of life I grew up around. It's like trucks and trains and all this country music stuff. And you go down to the gas station down the road where I live, and that's as country as anything you're going to find in Alabama or anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And to me, there's just an inherent authenticity to this kind of music. And then it's in the physical DNA of the States. Like my neighbor has probably has a banjo in his attic, and it's like people get together and have these jam sessions and play these old traditional songs, and it comes through different lenses. You have like your dead country and your jam band country, and then some really authentic, nerdy bluegrass stuff that
and a lot of people,
we wouldn't be welcome at.
A lot of people forget. I mean, country music as we know it has its roots from that early 1700s Americana that came about from the Irish and Scottish fiddle playing. And what we hear now in folk music and country music really all comes from that same nucleus happening, along the eastern seaboard, with immigrants bringing their music. And country music is just really another filtration of that, coming from the same place. And so I think there's that commonality of Americana and bluegrass and country music. having its roots from the same place, and I think a lot of people, whether they're from Vermont or California or Texas or Nashville, understand that and find that unique for. Oh, I'm sorry, not talking to the mic enough. Find that, understand that, or at least at a certain level, and appreciate the music. Country music. I mean, we've all traveled a lot, and I think, in this day and age, especially now in this day and age, music is so, it's all a hodgepodge. It's all getting mixed together, and the borders, so to speak, are very gray.
And that is our approach too. I mean, for better or for worse, we're not particularly good reenactors. So if we wanted to sound like, country from 1972, we couldn't do that. Or just the Bakersfield Sound, or like, Waylon Jennings or Hank Williams. So we do our own thing, and we pull from all those pieces. And we pull from rock and roll and soul and anything else that we like. But it's sort of, for me, it's this whole hodgepodge of American music that's fair game. And I think what you're supposed to do as an artist is pull those pieces that appeal to you and speak to you, and that's sort of what we've tried to do, is pull together the threads that are meaningful to us.
And I'm the newest member of the band, and I'm probably about 15, 20 years their senior of everyone in the band. And what's great is
don't give it away. It's the radio, so no one would know.
I'm 29.
That's creepy.
Super creepy.
You've seen a lot. You've had a hard 29 years.
Yeah, I've had a hard 29 years. Oh no, but I understanding these guys, I describe it to my friends who are there, like, hey, what are you doing today? Or what are you doing? Who are you playing with? It's these guys grew up listening to Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and all that, while at the same time also listening to The Clash. Mm-hmm. And at a gig, it'll go back and forth between this. There's this kind of more punk attitude live, but at the same time the songs are these more traditional country songs. So it's this great, like this, it's these older country songs from the 70s or 60s, but kind of with this fire in them from that youthful aggression of the 80s, I guess.
Right. And Nick, you're saying that you tried out the punk bands and other genres, and you kind of gravitated back to country because that was kind of the thing you grew up with as part of your soul. Do you, when you're writing, are these other genres that have kind of influenced you? Do you think about that when writing, or is it kind of just come out naturally? These are sort of things that, of course, you're going to play like this. Of course, you're going to have maybe a slightly punk filter on this, or maybe you can have a slightly more indie filter because of the influences, or is that actually intentionally put in?
No, I think I try not to think about it. Right? It's and I think when you write a good song, you don't think about it, and then maybe you notice later what the pieces are. And it's cool because the project is very much a band, and there's 5 of us and a couple other auxiliary members, and they all sort of have this deep appreciation of popular music and sort of all the different strains of Americana and American music, and then this sort of unifying thing around classic country. And so they will pull out pieces of flavor that I wouldn't have heard as well. But we sort of speak that collective language, and it is this geographic anchor of this, middle of Vermont area. And it's just, for me, it's the kind of country music someone who grew up where I did, when I did, would play, and that's what I try to go for.
Nice. Oh, well, I'd love to hear another song. So.
Yeah. So we'll hit one on that theme. So this song's called Hank Williams Cadillac, and we did this the first session. We went down to Nashville with the idea of just, it's time to do something, and the song's about some country music history and me and us, and then sort of the timeless thing that music is for bringing people together and feeling things. You ready? Mm-hmm. 1, 2. Well, Monday mornings really aren't that bad, and Tuesday's labor ain't gonna break my back. I can make it through the workday, punching in and punching out, but I get restless every year when the birds fly south, when them stars come out, when a cloud goes across the moon, when the radio is playing a high and lonesome tune, I get restless, reckless and blue. I was traveling when I met you. Since I've settled down, but the promises I made I'm a-keeping now. I wouldn't trade our home together for all the treasures in this town, but I still get restless when the dead leaves hit the ground, when them stars come out, when a cloud goes across the moon, when the radio is playing a high and lonesome tune, I get restless, reckless and blue. All right, Chris Bilou. I'm up late wondering what it felt like there in the back of old Hank Williams' Cadillac. I breathe deeply and I strike a match, and I feel it for a moment, then the moments pass. But when them stars come out, when a cloud goes across the moon, when the radio is playing a high and lonesome tune, I get restless, reckless and blue. When them stars come out, when a cloud goes across the moon, when the radio is playing a high and lonesome tune, I get restless, reckless and blue. I get restless, reckless and blue.
Western Terrestrials there with Hank Williams' Cadillac. I've got to ask, so you've already kind of explained why you call the Western Terrestrials, you're kind of outsiders in this country scene. Well, you kind of go full force with it. I mean, it's not just the name and the kind of concept. There's references to Blade Runner, Armageddon. You got a song called Space Cowboys Got the Blues. Your new single's called 1984. There's obviously like a kind of sci-fi slant to the work. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, the sort of reality caught up with the gimmick much more quickly than we expected. I mean, so it's a really...
It's all part of the plan.
Yeah, it's almost...
we knew the plan.
We got our orders from afar. It's a really rich metaphor, right? I mean, when you start digging into, and like on some level, we're all sci-fi nerds and X-Files fans and other things, and then there's some true believers in the bunch as well, I think. Maybe even one here tonight. But Aliens sort of like went mainstream last summer is the funniest part about all of us. I just love it. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and what I write about a lot in songs is sort of this. So it's like songwriting is a deeply personal thing, and then you get to have this connection with a band playing it. And we went through this pandemic where we physically couldn't be in the same space, and there was an isolation that was very difficult as a performer and extra frustrating because we sort of were hitting our stride with this project when the pandemic started, and we were actually in Nashville recording the week that the like COVID acts came down, and we had shows set up on Music Row in Nashville and in Memphis, and instead we drove home on this like terrifying Friday the 13th highway where everyone's going 80. The truck stop, we stop, the shelves are clear, and like the world is a very different place. And we've been writing these songs about, you know, isolation and paranoia and, you know, the apocalypse coming, and all of a sudden it was actually happening. And, you know, when we got out of that van, we didn't see each other in the same space for, you know, almost a year. And the metaphor just, it felt real all of a sudden, right? It wasn't the sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, spooky camp thing we were doing. It was very much the reality that had caught up. And we'll play that song, 1984. I was going to play it next anyways, but that was the weirdest one because I've been working on that for a while, wrote it towards the start of the pandemic, and it just, it's about a bunch of different things, but part of it is about what was happening, as it turns out, with the pandemic and isolation, and there's also these sort of lines about the Wizard of Oz, which is sort of the ultimate surreal thing, and we certainly aren't in Kansas anymore, and we weren't. And then I talked about the Civil War in there too for some reason. That was just what we were feeling, and we were getting ready to release the song, and it was like January 6th. I was watching TV and saw a Confederate flag like on the Senate floor, and it was just deeply, you know, it freaked me out to some extent. You know, it's what we've been sort of talking about in this theoretical, almost campy sense, was very much this fever dream reality that was happening. And on top of that, 1984, the book went #1 on Amazon that week, out of the blue, because everyone else was feeling this dystopian Orwellian thing that was happening. And then cropped up, there's like Wonder Woman 1984, and I think there was an American Horror Story 1984. And it feels like we sort of hit this zeitgeist by accident, which is a very, very odd feeling. But that's sort of the ethos of the whole thing. Something about it's resonating with people right now, which means a lot. But sort of we started out going for it with the weird, and we couldn't quite keep up with reality. It's caught up and past us.
Bit of a runaway train at this point, or a runaway spaceship at the very least.
Absolutely.
Was it quite? Did you reflect on that drive back from Nashville up to Burlington, further than Burlington, Danville, and was it, in hindsight, quite nice to be able to spend that time with your fellow band members, your friends? Obviously, at the time, you didn't know that you were going to be able to see them again for another year, but is that something you ever reflect on in terms of that time you spent with them?
All the time, and it really, for me, it's one of the hardest things. It was the easiest thing, ultimately, because it was very clear when we got on the highway that the world wasn't just safe. Right? You know, it was, so we all wanted to be home with our families. But for me, like as an artist, I'd taken a good amount of time off and then sort of put all my chips in. We did one album in Nashville. We had a follow-up one, like it was happening. You know, it was the closest I've ever been to whatever that is, you know, making it. It sort of felt like, so, you know, I said like a nice steak dinner, and then they ripped the tablecloth out. So it was devastating for me. And then it also was the best creative year of my life. And for the band, we've had more success over the pandemic era than anything I've ever done creatively in my life. And so it's like very much both. It just had to happen the way it had to happen, as it turns out, and that's sort of what I've reflected on. But it was very bitter days when it's like, I have this thing and it's happening and I can't do it, and this is the one thing. This is what I'm good at and what I'm supposed to be doing. And that isolation was really tough, and also what's driven the projects we've done during the pandemic, and being able to come back together and play this summer was just a jubilant experience.
Well, when you say you've kind of it's helped you progress and grow as a band more than when prior to the pandemic, does that just mean creatively in terms of just writing songs, or do you mean performing songs? Are you doing lots of gigs over Zoom, or is this like kind of post-pandemic? Now you've seen this explosion.
So here's the really crazy our little window, and I almost have like some survivor's guilt around it, because it's a pretty cool story and been pretty awesome in a lot of ways. That week when we were down in Nashville, right, you know, as this was hitting, the guy from Old Crow Medicine Show, this guy named Catch the Chords, a band leader, fiddler, wrote Wagon Wheel, pretty prominent guy in this world. he reached out to me out of the blue on Instagram and said, I think it was, y'all are weird. Let's co-write a song called Ethan Allen Was an Alien together. And it's a great, right? That's
Fantastic
gold.
premise.
So we jumped right on it. I recorded a demo that night, sent it to him, and we just went back and forth. And the plan was we were going to record it together. And then the pandemic hit, and we couldn't do it. And it's first, kick in the gut. But then I kept pestering him. He was great. He recorded his tracks remotely. We had these tracks from the rest of the album, so we were able to finish that song. It's called Ethan Alien, and a whole album. And we put it out, and it did remarkably well for anything I've ever done. It was on the Americana charts. This was last summer. It was like 11 on the alt country charts. It got played on the Grand Ole Opry radio station in Nashville. Bunch of cool stuff. And the Okra guy, he loved it, and I got this notion last fall that we got to do something because we can't do a normal thing. And I realized every other artist in Vermont and creative was feeling the same angst I was about not being able to go out and perform. And if that's your thing, it's something you really have to do, right? It's not an easy profession or hobby or anything. You just get dragged out over again because you have to do it. It's part of your therapy, part of your... So I started calling all of my friends who are actors and filmmakers and poets, and we put together this crazy project that Jim from Big Heavy World was like the second person I called and was the fiscal sponsor. And we made a movie called Ballad of Ethan Alien. And it's a feature film. It has a whole bunch of different Vermont artists in it. Luis Guzman has a cameo. Ben and Jerry are in it. My friend Kaya Morris is in it. Rusty the Logger DeWeese is in it. Mm-hmm. And it's this whole celebration of Vermont art and creativity, from Bread and Puppet to Grace Potter and Hadestown and everything in between. But somehow we got everyone together, and we shot a full feature film last fall, and then we put it together over the winter, and we've been showing it this summer. And people are resonating with it, and it's fun. It's also some really serious themes, and it's sort of like a deconstruction of this Vermont art that's celebrated here in this room, and folks who've been involved with any sort of Vermont music for years. So we're going to be doing more showings of that. We have a website, balladofethanalien.com. But all of that happened because of this weird moment. So that's what we did with our
I can't release an
pandemic.
album, so let's make a movie.
Yeah, that
can't play
makes
shows.
total sense. Yeah,
And it's great. It's funny, and people loved it. It's like sort of like Rocky Horror Picture Show meets I don't know, Man with a Plan or something like that.
or maybe without the pandemic, maybe that would have just been a song, and it maybe would have moved on from there. But because people had the time, and because people wanted to perform, there was more space, and there was more kind of more opportunities for people.
Totally,
to
and who knows? It probably wouldn't have even been a song. Like things happened the way they happened, and who knows? But I have a feeling it's going to be a song I'm playing next year and a couple of years from now as well.
Mm-hmm. Funny you should mention Kaya Morris. She's actually a colleague of mine, and I did wonder why she was dressed as an alien on a Zoom call at some point last year. So that explains things now, actually.
Well, that actually wasn't during the shoot. That was just...
That's just a regular Tuesday for her.
Kaya's the coolest. She's one of the most compassionate, hardworking, just all-around badass people I know. Can I say that? I think I can.
Absolutely.
I can say compassionate.
Yeah, we bleeped that one out. Well, I'd love to hear another song. So what you guys got?
Yeah, let's play the song from the movie. So this is the 1984 song. I guess it's our latest single. But I'll try to enunciate so the full spookiness of so this was written almost entirely before the pandemic. Well, the sun came out after the flood, and the walking dead, they rose up from the mud. But these aren't like the zombies of the past. Zombies these days, they move fast. And if this here feeling's really here to stay, can I click my heels 3 times and make it all go away? 'Cause this don't feel like home anymore. It feels feels more like it's 1984. There's no place like that. Well, a twister tore down Main Street and blew away the bank. Posited my savings into the septic tank. But you don't have to be some kind of weatherman to know to get out of the way when it hits the fan. And if you see your feelings really here to stay, click my heels 3 times, make it all go away. 'Cause this don't feel like home anymore. It feels more like it's 1984. Virus came down, took John Prine's breath away. It felt unfair, but he had to die alone with a tube down his throat, gasping for air. And we all cried together but apart, drinking vodka, ginger ales, trying to nurse our wounded hearts. And the bastards can't say that Black Lives Matter more. And the plantation battle flag of slave owners just don't feel like Kansas anymore. It feels more like it's the Civil War.
1984 there by the Western Terrestrials. You certainly get a very bit political on that one. Is that something I missed from the other songs, or is it mostly this one or this specific project where you're kind of going for a more political bent?
No, I mean I don't know. It's right. It's like a political moment we're in, right? If you talk honestly, you have to talk about, I think, and it's all inherently political as far as I'm concerned. The Ethan Alien song. There's a good, like the line, right, sums it all up. It's from outer space, y'all are all aliens, right? And that's the sort of the absurdity of some of the divisions and the things we think about if you move the lens back a little bit.
Right.
So that's the political ethos right there.
And this, you the first album recorded in Nashville. The second album is out now. Is that correct?
It is. So the second album's called Back in the Saddle of a Fever Dream. It came out last summer, and we've been playing off of it a bunch this summer, all over, mostly the Vermont area.
And then there's a new single, 1984. Obviously, you just played that. Is that from a new album?
So that's from the movie soundtrack, which is going to be out in the coming months. So we have a couple other songs on it, and there's a bunch of other really great Vermont artists. Bo Thayer's on it, Sarah King, Brass Baligan do a version of our Ethan Alien song. Uriah Hackney mixed some of it from Ruff Francis and a bunch of other cool projects. And that's just the start, and then a bunch of the cast in the film sing their songs, and that's all on the soundtrack. So we're going to have that out soon, and then we've been working on a new album and recording some stuff recently as well. So we will have more to share soon, I hope.
Nice. You guys have been very busy. If we include the various artists' musical soundtrack, and then this next album, that would be 4 in 2 years, 3 years,
something like that. Yeah, no, it's our time, right? So you got to make.
Yeah.
What's the folksy expression? Make hay before the cows come home. Or
Right.
something like that.
Is this what you're finding right now, that you can every time you're sitting down to write something new's coming out?
Yeah,
it's very easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's never easy, or that's not. There's nothing easy about my process, but there's plenty to write about, and some of the other guys have been writing too. But I think about when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I had this really trite, stubborn thing where I was like, I wish I lived in an interesting time, right? It was like the 60s, things were happening, or the 70s, and then I don't know. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've realized how bizarre and screwed up that perspective was. Like, we are living in very interesting times, and that's not entirely a positive thing at all, you know, but for what it is, it is interesting, and there's plenty to talk about and write about.
That it is. That's actually an old Irish curse, you know.
Yeah, I think it's universal.
Yeah.
We have a couple similar ones in outer space.
I'm sure. But you mentioned that your process of writing's not the easiest. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
I have friends who can just sit down and write a song, and for me, it's fully formed, it's done, but I'll have these pieces just sort of gnawing at me for months on end, and then I'll pick up a guitar and a couple more pieces will come together, and then I'll lose it again, and then one day it's sort of there. But things like that Ethan Alien song, I had to write it, you know, because we wanted to record with the guy, and he was the shot, so we wrote that in like 2 hours, you know. So something to be said for pressure, I guess. But it's also just, it comes when it does, and you get these moments of creativity, and I think we've done a good job of harnessing them when they're happening.
Does it help when your back's against the wall, then, when you know you got a deadline or something that's very critical to kind of your own makeup and reason for being?
I don't think that's a duplicate. You can't do that one more than once. That was like, all right, this is I've talked about this for years, and I don't playing music it's very hard in a lot of ways, and you get these little door openings, and I've been doing it long enough where it's like, all right, it's cracked. I got to get my foot in there and kick it as hard as I can and run with this as hard as I can, and put my money where my mouth is. So I've said, for years, if something like this were to happen, if someone would reach out, I'd show up with the goods. And so I think that you have to deliver, right? Or it'd be time to retire.
Yeah. Maybe you already had that written in your head before this was even offered. It was just always dormant in the back of your brain.
I think the Ethan Alien was always sitting out there somewhere in the collective consciousness. We just had to reach out and pluck it down.
Just know what frequency they were on, that's all it was.
We had to adjust the
Right.
dial a little bit. But that was why, so the Old Crow Medicine Show, band that a lot of people know, had a big impact on me in like my late teens, because it was like people playing traditional music with sort of a contemporary, almost punk rock sensibility. And it hit me. I was like, this is something I can do and should do. It's okay for me to play this music my way. And then as a band, I didn't think about much at all for a long time after that, and sort of touched in with them at these pivotal moments in my life, I've realized in hindsight. But when they reached out of the blue, it just sort of, I saw the pieces, how they could fall together. I was like, we got to do this. And then sure enough, this summer, they finally did make it up here, and we got to open for them at Shelburne Farm. And they had us come out and sing Ethan Alien with them to the big crowd, and everyone cheered and yelled Ethan Alien. It was
incredible. Yeah, that's one for the memory banks when you're old and grey.
Yeah, no, I could be happy. So I think we can do some more cool things, but that was one cool thing we did right.
It's a pretty good peak, as peaks go.
Yeah.
Well, we've got about time for one more song, but before you play that, could you let us know where you might be playing again, and what we should be expecting, or where people can find you, at least?
So, 2 places, westernterrestrials.com. We'll lead you everywhere. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have a really fun Instagram. There's a lot of weird content and video content. And then balladofethanalien.com is the film. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be we played something like 40 dates over the last 3 months, and it's been awesome. We're not going to be doing much for November, December, January, because we're trying to figure it out, like everyone else. Like, what does COVID look like here? Mm-hmm. What indoor shows, what can we do safely? But in the meantime, we're going to be doing some more music, and I know we're going to be doing a live stream type special of the film coming right up in the holiday season, and that's going to be a lot of fun. and then we'll be announcing. I have this theory that come like January or February, people are going to be feeling cabin fever, and it's going to be the right time to be out in the world more heavily. So that's what we're plotting towards at the moment.
I'm into that. Hopefully, most of us had our booster shots by then.
Yeah, exactly.
The third booster shot.
The third booster shot. Yeah, that's about all we got time for. But what song you got to play us out with?
Well, we got to play the Ethan Alien song, right?
Of course.
That's after that story.
Not too fast.
With the big old UFO. Though they found us all quite stunning, the truth is it's been a long time coming and it's been around here for years, so the story goes. Ethan Allen was an alien, so were all the other little green mountain men. Created a state of being for outlaws just like them. Ethan Allen was an alien. We got cider skis, and did I mention we've the finest cheese this side of the moon? Hops for days and IPAs, best in the Milky Way, and UFO beers brewed by Harpoon. Ethan Allen was an alien, so were all the other little green mountain men. Created a state of being for outlaws just like them. Ethan Allen was an alien. Can't take the green out of these mountains, or the ET out of Ethan Allen. Can't take Champy out of the Vermont Lake. It was immigrants from outer space helped to make this country great. Let me tell you about some other ETs in my home state. Ben and Jerry, Ethan Alien, Snowflake Bentley, Ethan Alien, Nico Case, and a man called Ben. Luis Guzman, Ethan Alien, Fred Tuttle, Ethan Alien, John Deere and his tractor. Now the Dos Equis beer guy, Ethan Alien. They say he's the most interesting man in this world. In the entire universe, he's only number 27. That's still pretty good. Chester Arthur, Ethan Alien. Calvin Coolidge, not so much, but Bernie Sanders is a hardcore Ethan Alien. What? Quiet now. Now roses are red. Time's a flat circle. Sugar's sweet and so's Vermont maple syrup, so be good to each other and treat strangers like friends. In the parts of the galaxy where we come from, visitors are always welcoming from outer space. Y'all are all aliens. Well, Ethan Allen was an alien, so were all the other little green mountain men. Created a state of being for outlaws just like them. Ethan Allen was an alien. Right. Ethan Allen, Ethan Allen, Ethan Allen. Got a little help from the studio audience here. Ethan Allen, Ethan Allen. All your naturals. Well, Grace Paley and Annie Prue. Grace Potter, she's one too, and Anais Mitchell, she's a hardcore Ethan Allen. Got a couple of Ethan Allen, my apologies. Ethan Allen, whoa! Ethan Allen, Ethan Allen, Ethan Allen. All right. the Ethan Alien song.
I love it. That was great. Ethan Alien by Western Terrestrials there, guys. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Best of luck with all the projects. It's all onwards and upwards for you
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Yeah.
Can we play one more on the way out? I was inspired by a poster on the wall.
I would love to, but I have personally got to run. So,
Oh, no. All right.
I'm going to mosey on over.
We'll waltz you out proper.
I'm going to sign off by saying we've got Julia and the Nightcaps coming up next week, so tune in then. This has been 105.9 The Radiator, The Rocket Shop. I've been your host, Tom Proctor, and I'm going to skedaddle, but these two are going to play us one more song, so take it away, boys.
All right. Sorry to drive you out of the building, Tom. Thank you. That was
Thanks,
wonderful. I saw the Bill Kirchen poster on the wall with the Starline Rhythm Boys, and he's one of my favorite guitar players and another. It's cool seeing all these posters from all these different threads of Vermont music. And anyone who hasn't stopped by to see the Tiny Museum over here at 4 Howard Street, you should find a time to. There's Death posters, and Starline Rhythm Boys, and the sign from 242. But this is a song we just recorded. It's a cover. It's for Commander Cody, who just died, and Bill Kirchen played on it. He played the little Hot Rod Lincoln riff that we stole in Ethan Alien as well. So we had to play this one tonight. It's called Stems and Seeds. All right. Well, I'm all alone. It's Saturday night, watching the Late Late Show. A bottle of wine, some cigarettes. I got no place to go. But I saw you with your other man. He was wearing my brand new shoes, and I'm down to seeds and stems again too. Well, I saw my old friend Dave today from down in Bowling Green. He had himself the prettiest little gal that you have ever seen. But I could not hide my tears because she looked like you. And I'm down to seeds and stems again too. Now everybody tells me there's other ways to get high, but they don't seem to understand I'm too far gone to try. Now these lonely memories, they're all that I can't lose, and I'm down to seeds and stems again too. Yes, I'm down to seeds and stems again too. All right, Chris Bilou. Virus came down, slapped us all across the head, took John Prine back home, took Charlie Pride, Charlie Watts died, Commander Cody crossed into the ozone. But that's just a drop in the bucket compared to losing you. And I'm down to seeds and stems again too. I got the down to seeds and stems again blue. forever, Commander. Thank you very much.
Say good night, Nick and Chris.
Thank you.
Good
and
night. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Big Heavy World and Jim and everyone for all you do.
Yay! Thank you very much. Thanks,
Oh, that
guys.
was a blast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having us.